Welcome to Infinite AI channel. Today we'll see the important events that happened in Singapore between 1939 to 1945 during the World War II. This was fought between two groups. One we call that as an Axis power, comprising of Germany, Italy and Japan. The next one is the Allied forces that has France, Germany, United States, Soviet Union and to a lesser extent China. Up to 50 million people died during this bloodiest conflict worldwide. As a part of Singapore's 80th Total Defense Day, that is falling on this 15th of February, this day is remembered as the fall of Singapore in World War II. We would like to take you through the heritage trails of Singapore, like World War II, by visiting the markers. During 1930s, Malaya, that included Singapore as the main city, was the major trading center for rubber, tin, oil. Much of these were produced in these areas and was a major export. So British had the colonial rule in this part of the world. During this colonial rule by British Raj, Singapore was a fishing village having rich rubber estates and was acting as a key harbour in the Southeast Asia. Hence, British called this as their fortress, the most important place. It's also called as the crown of the Far East. After World War I, Japan was developing their military strength enormously. In order to do that, they need tin and rubber. On the other side, it also wanted to take the control over Chinese living in Singapore, Malaya region, as they believe that the rich people living in Singapore were supplying wealth to China that helped China to get back, China to attack Japan frequently. Hence, Japan targeted to take over Malaya and Singapore. Hence, Singapore was a key place for Allies and the Axis forces during the World War II or the Far East theatre. After Malaya falling into Japanese hand by the end of January 1942, Allied forces have called all its troops to Singapore and destroyed the causeway that connected Singapore and Malaysia on 31st January by bombing the causeway link, the main road link between Singapore and Malaysia, or then Malaya was bombed by the Allied forces, and they thought that this would prevent or it would slow down the rapidly advancing Japanese into Singapore. Within Singapore, Arthur Percival, who was leading Allied forces, spread his troop this way. The triangle one with artillery units. You can see this as a chessboard where the northwest area is very lightly defended. Few days before the Singapore battle, Japanese spied Allied forces military strategy in Singapore and understood about their weak points, which is at the Sarimbun area, which is in the northwest frontier of Singapore Island. In order to divert the forces, Yamashita, the chief of Japanese troop, did a false attack on Pulau Ubin, which is in the northeast of the Singapore Island. By seeing this, Percival concluded that the attack will be only coming from the northeast and not on the northwest, and made the northeast area very strong. This made Japanese job very easy. On 8th February around 8:30 p.m., Japanese troops started crossing the Johor Strait using boats and also swimming and landed Sarimbun. At this point, only 22nd Australian Brigade was deployed, which made Japanese job much easier, who came in thousands. After few hours of brave fight, Australian troops was not able to hold the position and finally Japanese troops managed to land in Singapore. Hence, this place is called Sarimbun Landing Point at the northwest frontier of Singapore Island. Soon after the Sarimbun landing on 8th February 1942 night, the Australian troops retreated to Amakeng village. During the World War II, this place used to be cultivated land and lot of farmers used to stay here. Now this area has been taken over by Singapore military as part of the Tengah Air Base extension. At this place on 8th February night 1942, severe attack was done by Japanese troops on the Australian 22nd Brigade and 12th Indian Brigade. As few thousands of Japanese have already landed and the Allied forces need to retreat, and finally this village fell in the Japanese hand. For Yamashita, capturing Tengah Air Base was the main target in order for him to take control of the British air bases. He wanted to achieve this by 9th February. A huge Japanese forces were deployed and finally Tengah Air Base fell into Japanese hand by 9th February. This picture shows the position of Japanese as of 9th February. The dotted line shows the key defense line names, namely Jurong Kranji defense line. As you can see, lot of Japanese troops were already in and Allied forces have retreated behind the Jurong Kranji defense line. This defense line was supported by 15th and 44th Indian Brigade. Percival's plan was to prepare the defense line strongly inside the city and call back the troops. On 10th February, however, all the communication lines were cut and there were no clear direction. The Indian Brigade thought that they need to retreat as well to Bukit Timah. Hence, they left the defense line fatally and retreated. This is the marker that depicts the Jurong Kranji defense line retreat. On 10th February, there was another major hit for Allied forces, whereby Japanese invaded Singapore from the north as well and landed at Kranji beach. The 27th Australian Brigade together with 8th Indian Brigade and an ad hoc Tom force were defending these places. They defeated the Japanese by burning them using oil and caused severe casualty for Japan. However, after huge struggle, Japan was able to get inside Kranji point as well. This marker explains the bravery of the Allied forces and the Kranji landing by Japanese. This picture depicts the position of both the troops on 10th February 1942 night. Now, let's look at what happened on the Bukit Timah front. On 10th February, Japanese started giving continuous attacks on the Bukit Timah hill. This is the point that is highest in Singapore. This attack was defended by 12th and 15th Indian Brigade and the 22nd Australian Brigade. However, by 11th February, both 12th and 15th Indian Brigades were destroyed by Japanese with severe casualties and Bukit Timah fell into Japanese hands. On the same day, Yamashita invited British to surrender, but Percival held on and withdrew his forces to a new 28-mile long perimeter line at Bukit Chandu, setting the stage for the last and final battle for Singapore, the battle at Pasir Panjang. This was defended by the 1st Malay Brigade and the 44th Indian Brigade. On 13th February, these troops consisted of less than 5,000 soldiers who came face to face with 13,000 Japanese soldiers. Under heavy fire from Japanese who had artillery and tank support, Allied troops had been forced to retreat back. The battle at Bukit Chandu, the final battle for Singapore. Bukit Chandu was a strategic defense position during the World War II for the British due to the following facts. It is situated on the high ground overlooking the island to the northwest. Secondly, if Japanese gained the control of the ridge, it gives them direct passage to the Alexandria area just behind the ridge. British military in Singapore had its main ammunition base and supply depot in this region. One of the military hospitals, which is Alexandria Hospital, and other key installations such as the Normanton Oil Depot located right next to Alexandria. A Malaya platoon consisted of 42 soldiers and their officers commanded by 2nd Lieutenant Adnan Saidi was holding a critical part of British defense at Bukit Chandu. This small team fought for a few hours bravely against a huge number of Japanese who had severe artillery power. Even after finishing the final bullets in their guns, the Malaya platoon fought with bayonet and even with hands before their last breath. The wounded Lieutenant Adnan Saidi was hung upside down till his death. Due to his bravery, he is lauded as the World War hero of Singapore and Malaya. Alexandria Massacre. On February 14, soon after the fall of Bukit Chandu, Japan troops went into Alexandria Military Hospital and shot a British lieutenant who was waving a white flag to indicate that it is hospital. Then this troop went inside Alexandria Hospital and killed 50 soldiers, including those who were hospitalized and also doctors and nurses. Around 200 prisoners of war been put into 400 square meter room for entire night without water and ventilation. Many of them died due to this treatment and few survivors after this treatment had been shot down. This is the treatment that Japanese want to give to British if they further delay their surrender. Final hours before the surrender of British. When things were happening on the west and south side of Singapore, Japanese captured the main water reservoir, Macritchie and Pierce reservoirs, cutting the water supply to entire Singapore. This is the respective army position as of 14 February 1942 night. Finally, the surrender of British to Japan. On 15th February 1942, Percival had been informed that he has the water reserve only for less than 24 hours. Hence, considering the life of civilians, also the fact that there is no chance to capture the water reserve, Percival and his team decided to surrender. By 4:15 p.m. on 15th February, they left from their headquarters, that is in Fort Canning, to the Ford Motor Company, which is located in Alexandria, to meet Yamashita. By 8:30 p.m. on February 15, Allied troops laid their arms. This is the path of the Allied forces walked before surrendering to Japan. Singapore has fallen. British surrendered. The fall of Singapore is considered as Britain's worst defeat in World War II. In less than 2 months, British has lost entire Malaya and Singapore to Japan, surrendering 80,000 troops unconditionally to Japan. We can say that this loss is due to underestimation by the Allied forces about their enemy, poor war strategy or planning, poor communication. In other words, British were in their comfort zone, complacent in their planning. They did not estimate what is the power of Japanese. In fact, they didn't even prepare the other frontiers of the war. They were very well prepared to defend from the south. The British assumed that the main invasion can happen only through the sea, and they had fortified all the places from the sea. They did not prepare what was coming from behind. Japanese understood the poor planning of British and the weak zones, and it is the weak point that was exploited very well by Japanese to take over Singapore. Thank you for watching.